Early May 1940, Europe. Nazi Germany has been at war with Great Britain and France since the 3rd of September 1939, but little fighting takes place on the Western Front until now. The German invasion of France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands starts on the 10th of May 1940. Belgium and the Netherlands surrender the same month, and between the 26th of May and the 4th of June 1940, more than 300,000 French and British troops are evacuated from the beaches near Dunkirk across the English Channel to Great Britain. Paris, the French capital, falls to the Germans on the 14th of June 1940, and 8 days later the French delegation signs an armistice with Germany. To implement their policies in France, German authorities require the assistance of local collaborators who will commit some of the worst atrocities during the occupation. One of the most sadistic Nazi collaborators during the German occupation of France is Pierre Paoli. Pierre-Marie Paoli was born on the 31st of December 1921 in the small town of Aubigny-sur-Nère, located about 50 kilometers from the city of Bourges in central France. He came from a modest family, with his father working as a herbalist and his mother as a milliner. At school, Paoli was described by his teachers as a good child and student, though also somewhat sly and very introverted. Alongside his regular schooling, he took part in the local parish youth group, where he enjoyed leading games, organizing activities, and giving instructions. He later admitted that in the frequent quarrels between the village's religious and secular children, he always sided with the church kids and proudly said he liked to beat up the Reds, referring to children from secular or left-leaning families. This reflected the social and political tensions in France at the time between conservative Catholic communities and supporters of more progressive or socialist views. After earning his primary school certificate, Paoli started working at a young age. In October 1937, he became a clerk at the Aubigny tax office. With the help of the local tax collector, Paoli passed a civil service exam and was appointed to the Treasury office in the small town of Meaux-sur-Yèvre, where he began working in May 1938. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. The Battle of France began on the 10th of May 1940, and on the 22nd of June of the same year, the Armistice at Compiègne was signed by France and Germany. After the fall of France, Paoli decided to change the course of his life. He returned briefly to his hometown of Aubigny before settling in Paris, where he took on small jobs, including a short stint as a cyclist messenger for the German Navy. In January 1942, he returned to his previous post at the local tax office. Fluent in German and strongly anti-communist, Paoli soon caught the attention of the SD, the intelligence agency of the SS and the Nazi Party under Hitler's regime. On the 31st of March 1943, he joined the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police in Bourges, as an interpreter. Stationed at 12 Michel de Bourges Street, he quickly became a trusted figure within the organization. Initially serving as an assistant to a German officer, he was soon placed in charge of Section 4A, which focused on combating communist activity. Thanks to his eagerness and loyalty, the Germans granted him broad autonomy and significant operational freedom. His superiors had a uniform tailored for him, complete with SS rank insignia on the chest and an eagle on the cap, along with boots and a leather belt to hold a pistol. This was how he now operated. Dressed as a Nazi and during his travels through the region, the Germans protected him as one of their own. Paoli moved into a room within the Gestapo headquarters and dined with German officers. He even requested German citizenship and was eventually promoted to the rank of SS Scharführer, an equivalent to staff sergeant in the U.S. Army. His role expanded to overseeing interrogations and leading operations against the French resistance. Feared across the region and hated by the resistance, by the summer of 1943, Paoli had become a marked man. On the 15th of August, in his hometown of Aubigny, resistance fighters opened fire on his vehicle in an ambush. While he survived, the failed assassination attempt only intensified his hatred and deepened his resolve. Consumed by a desire for revenge, he returned to his work with renewed aggression. Interrogations, tortures, and deportations increased dramatically, as Paoli launched an unrelenting campaign against those suspected of opposing Nazi occupation. In his post-war trial, held in 1946, Paoli defended his actions by claiming that he believed he was not betraying France, but rather protecting it. According to his own words, he saw himself as someone who was helping to rid the country of chaos and disorder. He claimed that the resistance's looting and defiance of authority violated his deeply held principles, and for that, he felt justified in targeting them. But the testimonies from his victims painted a far darker picture. Senator Marcel Plaisant described how he was arrested in Paris and transferred to Bourges, where he was interrogated directly by Paoli. The senator recounted how he endured electric shocks to the head and chest, savage beatings with a braided rope, and even being struck with a chair. His ordeal lasted 3 hours, and when it ended, he was returned to his cell barely conscious and in critical condition. Marc Toledano, another survivor, described his encounter with Paoli at Gestapo headquarters. As he stood in the hallway, the Gestapo officer Schultz pointed and said, "Ah, here is Paoli, a compatriot of yours. He is a specialist in ripping out fingernails." Schultz then turned to Paoli and told him, "Go ahead, practice on the young boy who refuses to talk." Paoli glanced at Toledano and muttered in German, "No, I do not have time. I have to go to the prison to see a Jew that the police sent us." Toledano recounted that Paoli had devised what he called the most refined tortures. He did not only pull out fingernails. Victims were subjected to electrocution in calculated doses, their skin sliced into strips, or they were hung upside down by their feet. Other witnesses shared similarly harrowing accounts. Dr. Cliquet recalled having the soles of his feet cut with a razor blade. Mr. and Mrs. Laral spoke of both the physical abuse and the looting they endured at Paoli's hands. This cruelty was not limited to individual acts of torture. On the 30th of April 1944, Pierre-Marie Paoli participated in the Bef Roundup, an operation conducted by the French Gestapo. It targeted around 60 individuals in the village of Bef and the surrounding area, aiming not only at members of the resistance, but also serving as a reprisal against the local population for earlier acts of sabotage. Paoli played a key role by overseeing arrests and ensuring the detainees were transported to the Gestapo-controlled Bordeaux prison in Bourges. The prison was used by both the Gestapo and the SD as a site for interrogation, detention, and torture of resistance members and civilians. Many of those arrested were later deported to concentration camps in German-occupied territories, where they endured forced labor, starvation, and in numerous cases, death under inhumane conditions. On the 6th of June 1944, under the code name Operation Overlord, U.S., British, and Canadian troops landed on the beaches of Normandy in France. Just weeks later, Paoli was involved in one of the most horrifying crimes committed in occupied France. On the nights of the 21st and 22nd of July, members of the French militia, together with agents of the Gestapo in Bourges, including Paoli, arrested 70 Jewish refugees in the town of Saint-Amand-Montrond. Most of the victims had been living in the area since 1939, having fled from the region of Alsace-Lorraine, which was annexed by Nazi Germany in 1940. They had found relative safety there for 5 years before being rounded up and taken to the Bordeaux prison. Over the course of 3 days, 37 of them were taken to an abandoned farm near the village of Guéry. On the 24th of July, 26 men were transported in a van pulled out in small groups and thrown alive into a deep well. On the 26th of July, 3 more men were thrown into another well, followed by 8 women on the 8th of August. In all 3 cases, the killers threw sacks of cement and large stones onto those who were still alive to finish them off and conceal their presence. The victims were men and women aged from 16 to 85. Only one man, Charles Kraumeisen, survived. He managed to crawl out of the well and was hidden by local villagers. His later testimony helped uncover the site of the massacre, recover the victims' bodies, and identify those responsible, including Pierre Paoli. It is estimated that over the course of his time working for the Germans, he was responsible for the arrest of more than 300 people, and for these crimes, he earned the nickname the Monster or Sinister Paoli. For most of those who passed through his hands, there were only two possible outcomes: death or deportation to a concentration camp. As the Allied forces advanced and the German hold on France began to collapse, Paoli fled Bourges on the 6th of August 1944, retreating alongside German troops. He managed to evade capture for several months, but was eventually arrested by British forces on the 16th of May 1945 in Flensburg, a town near the German border with Denmark. After being held in custody, he was handed over to the French authorities in January 1946 and returned to Bourges, the very city where many of his crimes had been committed. The trial of Paoli was one of the most anticipated post-war trials in the region. It opened on the 2nd of May 1946 at the courthouse in Bourges, drawing large crowds. When the accused entered the courtroom, surrounded by 8 gendarmes, a wave of tension spread through the room. Pale but composed, Paoli scanned the audience with a confident gaze. He remained emotionless as the charges were read aloud, which included the arrest and torture of patriots, collaboration with the Gestapo, and his direct role in the roundup of Jews in Saint-Amo. He admitted to all of it, but made one distinction. He denied responsibility for any murders that he claimed were committed outside of his official role, as if to separate himself from acts he considered purely criminal. He insisted he was not a common thug and declared, "I'm not French, but German." Paoli was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death. Just before his execution, he smoked one final cigarette, refused a blindfold, and declined to be tied up. Pierre Paoli was 24 years old when he was executed by firing squad on the 15th of June 1946. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you and we'll see you next time on the channel.